being a journalism student, as you know, can be extremely demanding and stressful.
Intense
And
too.
intense, yes. And so I think just like even throughout this year, just reminding myself that, if I can get through that, the physical, the mental, everything that went along with, being diagnosed with cancer, then, I can get through anything like school wise or through my like journalism experience.
If you hate homework, don't be an NBA broadcaster, because all day I do homework.
If you wanted to get into the media world, you had to write for one of the biggest publications. You had to get onto one of the biggest networks if you wanted to have a job in sports media. But now that's not the case at all.
How do I go to a national audience? Why would someone in California care about something going on in South Carolina?
Ultimately, I think if you're just you and like truly authentically you, people crave that.
The best advice you can ever get is just start.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Holden Conversations. You see now it's Holden Conversations, not Holden's Conversations. Made a slight change to the name. So something that a lot of student journalists do is they are connected with a lot of other student journalists, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn. And I was scrolling through my LinkedIn last week and I saw this story from a student at the University of Miami named Madeline Darby, sharing her experience on what it's like to deal with melanoma. Now, fortunately, Madeline is now cancer-free, and she's also on the podcast with me here today. Madeline, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about my experience, so thank you.
So my first question is, even though I did some perusing on LinkedIn and read all of your stuff about your experience with melanoma, can you kind of walk me through the day you found out and what that was kind of like?
Yeah, that was a really just a real day. I just remember it was the first day of my internship. And so I was just sitting in my office when I got a call from South Shore Skin Center. And I had gone a few weeks before to get a biopsy on a sunspot that I had. Didn't think of it since I had gone. I really didn't think that it was going to be anything. And so they had called me and I picked up thinking that they were going to tell me, it was nothing abnormal, totally fine. And then I picked up and she was just kind of like, yeah, we got your test results back. And she just kind of right away told me, it's melanoma. And I just remember at that point, I didn't really know that much about skin cancer, but I knew that word, and I knew that was like the one thing that I wasn't going to want to hear. And so I just kind of remember she was talking, but I was like, after she told that to me, I was just like not even like listening. Like I was just like in shock. And so I hung up the phone with her. I'm like sitting in my office and I'm like, what do I do now? I started, going back to answering the tip line, and then I was like, all right, I need to go call my mom. And so, yeah, I flipped out of my office, I called my mom, and that was, I think, the first moment that I felt scared was when I heard her over the phone and she was scared. And then at that point, I still didn't really know the stage. So it was all just really kind of unknown and kind of terrifying. But yeah.
What is it like? Obviously, there's no great place to hear that you have cancer. But being in a newsroom, which is a particularly intense place, how do you juggle all that? Especially in those like initial moments where you're told, hey, you have a life-threatening illness inside of you, but you're also like, no one knows except for you in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was funny because after, like, I just went back to work because I was like, well, I still have, a few hours left. It's my first day. Like, I still didn't really know my boss that well. I wasn't going to be like, hey, like, I just found out I have cancer. Like, it's just like an awkward situation to navigate. So I just remember, like, I called my mom and then I was like, all right, like, I called her in the bathroom too. I was like, oh, I'm going to bathroom break, called her. And then I was like, all right, like, she was like, do you want to leave? And I was like, no, it's my first day. Like, I don't want to leave early. Trying to make a good impression. And so I just went back to work, try to get my mind off it, and distract myself, which didn't really work. But yeah, I just went back to um, doing my internship and working, and then just tried to get my brain off of it.
What were kind of like the next steps after that?
Yeah, so I remember, especially for my mom, it was like finding out what stage it was, because that obviously impacts kind of the next steps. And so I was really lucky. I caught it stage one. So that means like before it spread anywhere else. Um, but that's still like you have to go and remove, the area, which is more like even if you have like a small like freckle,
Yeah.
they have to remove kind of like a large area around it, just to make sure that they get it all. And so then I remember right after that, the next day, it was like, when's the soonest I can go in to get this out of me? And so I think a week later, I went in, I had surgery, um, right across my chest. It was like 5 inches. They just basically cut it all out, which was terrifying. You're awake and you're
Yeah.
lying there. And I'm just remember just like being there and I'm like, how did I get myself in this situation? Um, and then, yeah, after that, I mean, even though it wasn't, like a huge surgery, you can't really do much because the stitches don't want to be moving. So I had to take a break from my internship, take a break from my job. I kind of had to put everything on pause and focus on like recovering.
Amid those moments before you got the surgery and you were
Mm-hmm.
still interning, what is it like to kind of be pursuing a passion or pursuing career goals? Is it an escape? What is that like knowing, hey, like they're like I don't know, like obviously fortunately you got it. You
Mm-hmm.
caught it in a very early stage of it. But what is that mindset kind of like?
It was really frustrating because I was just starting the internship and I was so excited for it. And I was like, I'm finally, doing what I want to do,
Yeah.
working in a newsroom. Um, and then, this happened and it kind of had to put everything on pause, which was frustrating. But I think I was just lucky. Honestly, I was really lucky to have this internship because I think throughout the summer it ended up being a really good distraction for me.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't go out and I couldn't be out in the sun. I couldn't really be active and do a lot of the things that I usually enjoy. And so I really just kind of put everything into work.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a really good distraction, but also, um, it was like when I was there, no one knew that I had cancer. So it was like no one knew me for that, which is also really nice.
Was it easier in a way to stay grateful during that time, especially for your work opportunities, being like, hey, not only do I have an escape, but it's something that I'm working towards?
100%. Yeah. Um, I mean, I just felt really grateful to have that kind of safe space, which is crazy to say because it was,
Yeah.
my job at the end of the day, but it really that's what it was felt like. Um, because I was constantly, speaking with other people, hearing about their problems. So to me, it also made my problems feel a lot smaller. Because really, I worked a lot with their consumer helpline too, which is really cool. So like I was constantly listening to other people's problems. I wasn't focusing on my own. And also that's just another reminder that like at the end of the day, everyone's going through their own issues. Because I feel like sometimes I was so focused on like myself and like I hate that this happened to me. And then I would go to work, speak to all these people and be like, everyone has something that they're going through.
Even if it's
which was a really good reminder.
even if it's not the same problems, you know that everyone has problems, which makes you feel, I guess, less alone. I mean, I've never had
Right.
cancer, never had a
Hmm.
life-threatening illness, so I don't want to speak for you, but I'd assume, well, we all have problems, and hearing that other people have problems, whether it's a good thing or not, it makes us feel like we're human.
Right, exactly. Hmm.
So, kind of talk to me about pressure now. Like how you view tense situations, especially as a reporter. Like, is doing a live shot at a botanical garden just as hard? Is that as hard now, or is it easier being like, okay, like I know what pressure's like. Like I had to deal with cancer. Like, what is that? What is that? What is your relationship with pressure now?
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely think it gives you a different perspective on things. Um, what I'm scared of, obviously the first live shot I ever did was like I had, nervous energy, but then, I'm also like, I'm not nervous about it, like I'm not scared of going out and doing a live shot because, there's been greater things that like I
Yeah.
know what I actually be scared of, Um, and I also think it's made me be able to connect with a lot more people. You don't realize. I feel like cancer is one of those things you don't realize. I feel like everyone either knows someone
Yeah.
or has experienced it. And so even like the people that I met, reporting, it was kind of like a way to connect with people. Um, so yeah, that was also something that I kind of got out of it. But in terms of pressure, it was definitely like I've I've been through worse, like it definitely changed my perspective on like the things that I was nervous or scared about in terms of reporting.
And just in your overall life as well, I'd assume.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. The things that I used to stress about, even in just my college career, the things that I used to get nervous for, it just changes. You're just like, at the end of the day, I'm not gonna freak out over. Well, I mean, I care about my grades, but I'm not like, is my world gonna end if I don't get the best grade on this test? Like, no, like I thought my world was ending,
Yeah.
when I found out I had cancer. So it's just different, just different perspective.
How do you, and I guess this is a question more for your future self, but how do you keep that mentality the more distant you get from dealing with cancer?
Yeah, I definitely think, especially now, because I feel like I'm at a point where I'm not kind of done recovering. It's still something like I have to be cognizant about, and I've had to change my lifestyle a lot. So it's always in the back of my mind, but I feel like especially now, I have to remind myself because being a journalism student, as you know, can be extremely demanding and stressful.
Intense
And
too.
intense, yes. And so I think just like even throughout this year, um, when I'm juggling, back to back interviews, and I have to go film this event and then go film another event, just kind of like mentally drained, just kind of reminding myself, that I can get through it because I've gotten through much worse.
Yeah.
Um, I think just reminding myself that if I can get through that, the physical, the mental, everything that went along with being diagnosed with cancer, then I can get through anything like, school wise or through my like journalism experience.
So speaking of storytelling, you have an obviously incredible story. Your career is about storytelling. How does your story help you become a better storyteller?
Hmm. If you'd asked me to tell this story during the summer when this was like happening, I would have never been able to do it. I didn't talk about this really with anyone. It was just like too difficult when I was still going through it. And then I think this year, I mean, as a journalist, as a storyteller, I'm always looking for, stories that are going to help people, that are going to impact others, that are going to share an important message. And then I realized, that I have my own,
Yeah.
which can be really vulnerable. I think as a journalist, you're typically not telling your own story. And then I was like, this is a story, especially because melanoma rates are rising among younger women. And so I was like, this is something that people should know about. Um, and then, I reached out to doctors, able to find out a lot more about it. And I still have people who are reaching out to me, especially like my mom's coworkers who are like, they're sharing with their daughters. And that, to me, as a journalist, means the world to me that, I can take something that I went through, take my story, and kind of do the same thing that I do in my own career.
Yeah.
And just make sure that I'm sharing a message that will resonate with people, and help people. So, yeah.
Does it also feel like you can see the power that someone young can have too? I think in journalism, it's always about, well, you got to pay your dues, especially with traditional journalism. You got to go to Montana, then you got to go to Kentucky, then you go to Pittsburgh, then you go to DC, and then you go to New York City. You're 21 or 20, 22?
20.
You're 20 years old, and you've already gotten people to be touched and moved. What is that? What does that do to your confidence?
Yeah, I think it's crazy because, even just this story, but also, others, anytime you have people who resonate with something that you write, even if that's another student, but especially because it's been people, outside of my own network, to reach out to me and tell me that, they're moved by something that I wrote. It reminds me why I went into this career. Because, you can be 20 and you can write something that resonates with people who are of all generations, whether that's them personally or for their children, kind of like with this story. And I think, it is a confidence booster because it's showing me that, I'm still in college, especially with like getting contacts, I was able to speak with some amazing doctors. It just shows you that, even as a student journalist, people, are believe in what you have to say and think it's important enough to talk to you, even though, this isn't for like a major publication, to still have doctors who believe in the story I'm telling and think that I can make a difference and take the time to speak with me meant a lot. But yeah, definitely just hearing the kind of words I've been hearing from people that my story resonates with them. It just reminds me of, why I went into this career in the first place. It makes me excited for, graduation.
I mean, look, I connected with you after you shared your story. So I go to Syracuse. That's like the opposite side of the East Coast. The weather couldn't be more different, and I reached out. So kind of perspective right there. I want to go back to what you were talking about with talking to doctors. So in your story where you talked about where you shared your cancer experience, I noticed that you reached out to a doctor who works at the Mayo Clinic. And for people who don't know, the Mayo Clinic is up there with like the NIH and other great. You see, I guess I know things. I don't know. It's up there with like the NIH and all the other great hospitals in the world. The Mayo Clinic's in Minnesota. You go to University of Miami, just because they both start with the letter M doesn't mean that they're near each other. Did your vulnerability, saying like, hey, I had melanoma, hey, I had this experience, did it make it easier for people to want to talk to you? And when they talk to you, do you think you got better answers? Because something that I've heard from a lot of journalists is whether it's that they're bilingual and they speak to someone who they know speaks Spanish in Spanish, or they open up about their experience like you're doing right now. It not only helps them get to talk to people, but it also gets them to get people to be more vulnerable and add more richer details.
I definitely think part of that, reaching out to me, and they have crazy.
They reached out to you?
No, sorry, reaching back out to me.
Okay.
Because they're doctors, so their schedules are. I mean, they were just trying to get an interview was a struggle.
Yeah.
So the fact that they not only responded to me, but made the time to plan something within their busy schedule meant a lot. And I think it did have a large part of it was me prefacing in my emails, like, I did have melanoma, which is why I'm interested in covering the story. Um, and I definitely think that might have, I don't know, I didn't really ask them if that, is why they agreed to do an interview with me, but I can imagine that would be a factor. And I definitely think during the interview, especially Dr. Brewer at the, the Mayo Clinic, he was telling me, he was like, after our interview, he was asking me, about my own experience, like
Yeah.
checking on me, like, oh, like you're still cancer free, how's your recovery? Um, and so we were also able to talk about melanoma, not just from, a strictly medical perspective, but also the toll that it takes on the patients that he sees. And I was able to kind of relate to things he was telling me about his patients, um, tell him stories about, because we were trying to talk about why people aren't concerned about this or some of the lifestyle factors that lead to it. And so I was able to tell him, things from my own experience, like things I observed from my friends. And then he was able to, back that up with facts or be like, yeah, I see the exact same thing in my career. So I definitely think being vulnerable, sharing my story, was able to have a more impactful interview. Um, and he was just like, even at the end, like I said, just checking up on me and how I was doing, really meant a lot. So yeah.
And that can kind of lighten the intensity that comes with a lot of interviews. In journalism,
Yes.
it can be very transactional, as anyone who spent 5 minutes in the media industry knows. And so, for you to have experiences where doctors are reaching out to you, checking in on you, shows the rapport that can kind of be made just from you sharing your story, just from you being comfortable doing that.
No, yeah. I mean, especially with doctors, so if you're talking to any type of expert or professional, you don't really know how that's going to go. But yeah, it definitely shows that, when you make a connection with someone as a journalist, whether that's something like cancer or even something that's, smaller, it can go a long way. But yeah.
No, and also getting people to talk, getting doctors or getting politicians or
Hmm.
police officers to talk in people terms rather than their jargon is also
Yeah.
really important too, because you're a journalist, you're not a doctor, and so all the
Hmm.
scientific terms you may be able to understand them, but if you're trying to communicate with large audiences, it's not necessarily always the best information.
Right. Yeah. And that was something I remember going into these interviews thinking, I mean, for me, because I've done so much research, I kind of understand some of the lingo and I understand um, kind of more about skin cancer than I think the general public does. But I
Yeah.
remember going into it, making sure, like, how would you explain this to someone who doesn't know anything about skin cancer? Or like, how does melanoma like, what is melanoma? Because I
Yeah.
mean, some people might not even know what that means. And just making sure that I explained all of the medical jargon in ways that were digestible for people was also something that I was really cognizant going into it because I wanted people to be able to read this and actually take away something from it and not like read it and be confused, but understand what I'm.
What is it like? Where did the hesitation come from to share your story?
Yeah, I think it was just the hesitation was more I didn't want to even think about it. It was just something that was like on my brain all the time in the summer. And then it was like when I went to school, I wanted that distraction. I wanted to just get back into it and kind of pretend it didn't happen. Um, and then, I realized, why would I? Obviously, I'm not going to escape. I have this huge scar on my chest. People ask me about it all the time. Like, this isn't something that I can run away from. So I
Yeah.
might as well turn my experience into something good. And I think that doing the stories helped that a lot because now I can, think of my experience and know that I'm doing something good with it. It wasn't just like this happened to me and it was awful, but it's like this happened to me and it was awful, but now I can share my story and maybe help other people protect themselves and avoid getting skin cancer. And so I think that for me has helped a lot. Um, just, I guess, move on, not even move on from it, but just see my experience in a different light.
And also, I would assume now that you're open about it and you're talking to someone on a podcast that you didn't even know probably existed outside of a LinkedIn connection a week ago, it's a part of you now. And I guess
Yes.
you opening up and sharing it shows that you're willing to reflect that as well, that like this is a part of me, and leaning into your identity.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's a, form of kind of self-acceptance. Like I think like I was saying, I wanted to forget it happened, not talk to anyone about it. And then in that way it was like, it never happened. But I think definitely through the story, it's like, yeah, like this is a part of my life now. I've had to make, significant lifestyle changes. And that's, I think just that part of self-acceptance, like, how I live my life is going to have to be different. But yeah, it is part of my identity now.
What was there like a social media post or a moment where you're like, I have to share this? Because it would have been very easy for you, understandable, and I would assume there's no right answer. Again, I don't want to speak for you, but was there like a moment where you're like, I want to share this, I'm going to be open about it?
I honestly think just going to school, especially being in Miami, and just kind of like observing, my classmates and my friends, going, they were tanning all the time.
Yeah.
And they were going to tanning bed. And, I'd warn people, like, especially my roommates, I'd be like, don't go to tanning bed. That's going to give you cancer. And they're like, and they would be like, yeah, okay. And they would still go. And I'm like, okay, there's clearly an issue here, which I did talk about, like the doctor. It's like, people warn you about skin cancer, but it doesn't resonate with people.
Yeah.
And I guess even they were telling me, like, they're trying to figure out ways, to communicate this in a way that actually resonates with especially younger generation. And so I guess I was like, the best way, I think, to resonate with people and to maybe not scare them, but like, you never think it's going to happen until it does.
Yeah.
And I think people are like, oh, you can get skin cancer. And they're like, okay. And I'm kind of here like, no, like I actually did. Like it's actually possible. So I think honestly what sparked me to speak up about it was just observing, the people around me, especially like the young women, knowing how vulnerable they are, seeing kind of their behaviors in the sun, and just wanting to make sure that, they stay protected so they don't have to go through, what I did.
Do your friends kind of think of you as like a mom? Like when you remind them of things, like, are they like, oh my God, Madeline, are you going to tell us again? Like,
I've definitely become like the sunblock police. We go outside and I'm like, guys, strong UV right now, make sure you're wearing sunblock, don't go to tanning beds. Yeah, they definitely do see me as like that. But I don't mind taking on that role. So.
No, I bet especially with your friends too. I mean, because they obviously know it comes from a place of care, but you really have a strong task. Like it's not like you're going to school in Minnesota or in upstate New York. You've got a strong task. Palm trees out every day and such.
Right. And I want to make sure like I tell people, and I said this in my story too, like I'm not telling you to stand at the sun. Like I get it. I'm from Massachusetts. Like I went to the University of Miami for a reason. Like I love the warmth. I love being in the sun. Like I get it, but there's ways to do it that you can protect yourself, like just put on sunblock, like wear a hat, like just be cognizant. So it's like, I am a little bit of like the sunblock police, and it's hard. I remember having a lot of anxiety actually about going back to school because I'm not going back to somewhere where it's going to be cold. I was out of the sun all summer, and then suddenly I was like, I'm going to Miami where UV's high every day, all season long. And it's just like every day I'm going to have to be cognizant about protecting my skin, staying out of the sun. But it was also like I had anxiety about missing out on things because I couldn't be in the sun. So, um, so yeah, that was definitely like something that I was anxious about navigating when I went back to school.
No, and I bet that element of FOMO has to really sting too.
hmm And it wasn't as bad as I had, made in my head. I wasn't, missing out on everything. It was just kind of like making sure that if I was going out in the sun, like I said, I was just being safe and protecting my skin. Just again, it's like a lifestyle change, something that you just have to kind of be cognizant about for like the rest of your life.
Um, do you have any? Obviously, you're a journalist, but do you have any sunblock recommendations? Now I don't have to deal with the sun anytime soon. I'm from Maryland, and I go to Syracuse, so and I plan on moving to New
Yeah.
York City post grad. So I'm not going to really be
So
dealing with
you
the sun.
won't be in the sun. Yeah, that's funny. I actually did tour Syracuse a week after I toured the University of Miami, and I was like, I can't do this. It was just too. I like couldn't even. I was like shaking walking around campus. I'm like, yeah, great school. I don't know.
Did you apply to Newhouse? You get into Newhouse?
Yes,
Okay, yeah. I go to Newhouse. Um,
right. So great journalism school. Just the weather, I couldn't. Which I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm just, I'm being dramatic. I should be used to this, but um, I mean, there's so many good sunblocks. I use NMD, which is a really good one. But I mean, people hate sunblock. I mean, I hated sunblock, to be fair. I still do. But there's so many, especially like, and I tell my friends this all the time, for like your face that's tinted, like you can put it underneath your makeup, like you won't even know. Like there's so many now that are just like so good. If that's anything you can do, like just wear sunblock. It's such a simple message, but it's so important. So yeah.
do you any good SPFs or anything like that?
SPF. I mean, I really like the Skin MD one, which is like medical brands. It's like probably the strongest one out there. That's what I wear, like 50 SPF. I love that one. So that's my recommendation.
No, for me personally, I
Yeah.
had very severe acne when I was younger, and I
Mm,
still get procedures. I got one 2 3 weeks ago, so I've
yeah.
actually always been cognizant of the sunblock that I'm putting on my face because I've had to get prescription sunblock.
Yeah.
But that's just me personally. I don't want to say that my experience is like yours. I just want to say that for a very little crevice of my life, I know about the sunblock world because I've had to get special sunblock in my life and had to wear it in December in up in
Yeah.
Syracuse.
hmm I know, especially I know people who are like on Accutane, and I
Yeah.
know you can't really, your skin reacts to the sun differently when you're on like medications like that too. So,
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and your lips get dry and all this such, but this is not a medical podcast. This is not a medical podcast. Want to tie this back before we started talking about, sunblock and Miami
right.
trees and Syracuse snow. What would you say to people who are scared to come forward about their experiences that can really change people and inspire people?
Yeah, I mean, I think always, you don't have to until you're ready. Like I know for me, I wouldn't have been able to tell the story when I was still, going through surgery and recovering over the summer. But I think it honestly has helped me overcome this experience a lot and just get a different perspective from it, knowing that obviously I would never want to go through this,
Yeah,
but going through it, you can make an impact from it and you can take something awful and turn it into something for good
yeah,
and use your story to help others. I think it takes a lot of, you know, vulnerability and a level of confidence. Like for me, especially I have like a scar on my chest. I remember my mom telling me like at this point, like you kind of just have to own it. Like if someone asked me, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I had cancer, and like I used to get so anxious about telling people that. I've just kind of accepted it, and now it's like now that I've accepted it, it's how can I take this awful experience and turn it into an experience that can bring awareness and help others. And I think that's helped me move on from it a lot.
do were you scared telling people when people would ask what's that scar? and you would say, I have cancer, was your expectation of what they would say or what they would uh, feel different than what actually happens?
I think I was just anxious because I knew how uncomfortable it made people when they would ask me,
Yeah.
and then they'd be like, "Oh," or like, "I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "No, like it's okay. Like I'm cancer free now." But it was honestly like almost like a secondhand embarrassment thing. Like I knew they would feel uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, like it's okay." But it just people got like very weird about it,
Yeah.
you know?
So kind of people get like kind of like frozen.
Yes, they're just like, oh, because they don't expect me to be like, oh yeah, it's the last thing that they expect, and then they're kind of like they don't know what to say, and I'm like, no, but it's okay, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What would you say to people who like they're asking someone what's that scar, what's that, and they say I have cancer. What is a good response?
To say to someone who tells you they have
Yeah,
cancer,
yeah,
I mean, I think to me, anytime people are like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, you know, that's nice to hear. I'm like, thank you, but I think don't. I mean, at least for I guess it's so different for everyone, but I think for me, like, you don't have to get awkward about it. Like
yeah,
obviously I'm like telling you it's like I mean say like I don't care if people were to like ask me questions about it.
yeah. Well, clearly
Again,
you're on this podcast.
right, yeah. Again, that's like a personal thing. Like I
Yeah,
wouldn't be around like saying like
yeah,
go ask people with cancer what their experience is like. But I mean it just depends on the person. Like I think for me, people can tell that I'm open about it.
yeah.
You don't have to be awkward about it. Like you can ask questions and I'm so willing to speak about it. Um, so yeah.
Just a few more things here. What is one piece of advice you would give yourself that you know now when you found out in the Seven newsroom that you have cancer?
Yeah, I think I would just tell myself, you know, will remind myself like it's gonna be okay. Like it's scary now, but eventually, you know, you're gonna get through it. And I think honestly for me, I not that I'm happy it happened, but I wonder if I would ever kind of change my habits out in the sun if this had not happened to me. So I almost feel like it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Because now I'm a lot more careful. But I think I would tell myself like everything's gonna be okay. You know, just keep working, keep going, driving towards what you're passionate for, and everything is gonna work out. And don't be afraid to talk about it. Obviously, I got to that point, but when over the summer, I didn't want to talk about it. So I think I would tell myself, use this experience for good, talk to people about it. It's going to make you feel better, and hopefully, it's going to make an impact.
Do you have any websites or signs that people should look out for getting screened for melanoma?
Yeah, and this is something that I was able to talk to the doctors about. It can be hard to detect, but essentially what you want to look for is they call it like the ABCD criteria. So asymmetry, anytime you have like a spot that isn't like a perfect circle, that's kind of like a weird shape. Um, anytime it's borders, if there's uneven borders, color, if it's changing in color. I know mine, it started off as a really small like freckle, like you would have never noticed it. And then it just grew. So that's one thing, growth, if it's ever changing in size. And then it just got really dark. So changes in color. But I mean, rather be safe than sorry, I would say, especially for people who have a history of skin cancer in their family, who have fair skin or have a lot of freckles. Those are kind of signs of people who are more vulnerable to skin cancer. And even just, annually going once a year can make a difference. Or doing your own skin checks, like I said in my story, can be something that's life-saving.
You want to drop your socials?
Yes, my LinkedIn is Madeline Darby Media, which is also my Instagram. You can find my story on there. And I also write for the Miami Hurricane. I have some stories on there, which this one will be on the Miami Hurricane scene. So, yeah.
Thank you for watching another episode of Holden Conversations. Madeline, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss the latest from Holden Conversations. Until next time.